During the pentagram rite, it seemed like there was an opening of the veils, a parting in a circle from a point in the eastern side. During the first set of vibrations, it was like there was an orange snow that settled in the place of the light. And then there was like a cloud. And then in the third set of vibrations, it was like there was a clockwise wrapping around me and the ritual space. With the fourth, it was like there were sheets of metal piled up outside of that. In the fifth, the presence from below seemed to have a communication that I could not interpret. During the final reading, it was like the wind was trying to communicate, and I didn't quite understand it. In the final scrying, there was the building up of the tingliness and a sense of power. And there was an interweaving of blue in the shadows in such a way that I don't think I can describe it. Jim Morrison was what you might call the American version of a Sufi, an American version of some sort of Eurasian bard, an American version of the ritual composing shaman of Africa are the Americas. This book comprises lyrics, and just that portion alone would make the book worthwhile, even at the price that it sells at, full price. Perhaps we see some differences arising with the lyrics, some rejected ones among those. 2 or 3 journals that were lost. Were mostly of things that weren't too original, and as valuable and tragic of a loss as Jim Morrison considered that, perhaps it gave way to some of his other stuff. Like, what if I had not lost my book on over 60 philosophies to make my point? What if I had not lost some other projects that I had worked on, and due to computer issues more than anything else, lost those? What if certain opportunities weren't cut short, that they were allowed to continue? Maybe things wouldn't have been as good for me in terms of my spiritual output, you could say, if that had been the case. It's like the Taoist thing. Well, what if, right? No matter what roles we take on, there's more to it than that. Horse latitudes is one of those ones that instead of some sort of savior deity or saint or whatever the myths have going willingly to their death, is sort of, the horses surrendering to their fate. Eyes is perception and what that does for us through the ages. Anatomy of rock reminds us of how things are, not quite so entertainment driven, but rock, of course, is a response to that. It's a response and involvement in what you could say the alternative culture. Of course, now you can totally sell out when it comes to rock, but Celebration of the Lizard is probably about as close as you could come to an apocalypse of Jim Morrison sort of thing. It's not quite you. It's sort of dreamy and sort of a role that you have to take on, or, an assortment of events that represents life. Dry water instantly makes one think of alcoholic beverages and how that can be the catalyst of how evil comes through. Abundance and lack kind of blur together. Now, one thing about Jim Morrison was he was not as attached, you could say, to the lust of results, to the wealth. Wealth was a tool, and he kept using whatever means he had towards furthering his ends. And we can also say that dry water, like the lizard celebration, is, it's a journey. It's a life, perhaps a softer life, but it doesn't get all mammalian or transcendent or all, amphibious and sea creature stuff like too. Supposedly reptiles are the more evil, whatever, but it's not all positive when it's the good life. Before getting into the new creatures, we can think of how sex and violence, with the references, was how he let the art through when it wouldn't seem to come out otherwise. The new creatures makes us think of fantasies about what it would be like to be Native American or back in Africa in ancient times and that sort of thing, and how this produces the new human being. Revolution is coming, indulgence, abstinence, the new ways of the city, the new ways of civilization, an understanding of nature that deepens, understanding what technology might do, what's going to be left when it all goes down, and how we are going to make it through.